Have you ever tried to focus after a night of poor sleep only to find yourself struggling to remember simple details or to stay alert? Most of us underestimate how much sleep influences our ability to think, feel, and perform daily tasks. Sleep is one of the most important functions that humans need to survive and thrive. It is not only a time to rest, but a complex process during which the brain is highly active. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, sleep supports the brain by forming new neural pathways and strengthening old ones, which improves our ability to learn, make decisions, and manage emotions. Understanding how sleep affects the brain, it is important for everyone because it influences nearly every aspect of our mental and physical well-being. When we neglect sleep, we are not just losing rest, we are damaging one of the most important organs in our body. After researching information provided by the National Institute of the Health, including the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, and the National Institute on Aging, I learned that sleep is critical for protecting the brain's structure and functions throughout life. Today I will share what I've learned about how sleep affects the brain and why maintaining healthy sleep patterns is essential for the brain to have the ability to function efficiently, which includes memory, decision making, and problem solving. First, I will discuss how sleep strengthens neural connections and improves learning. Next, I will explain how sleep deprivation negatively impacts mood and cognitive performances. Finally, I will describe how consistent sleep supports long-term brain health and reduces the risk of neurological impact. Now that we understand how important sleep is to the body, let's take a closer look at how it affects the brain's ability to form and strengthen connections during rest. During sleep, especially during the deep and rapid eye movement REM stages, the brain is actively processing and organizing information gathered throughout the day. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, sleep allows the brain to form new pathways and help us learn and remember information. This process is called memory consolidation, and it is one of the main reasons why students and professionals perform better after a full night of sleep. When we sleep, the brain replays and recognizes experience, reinforcing the connections that were formed while we were awake. Sleep is also essential for creativity and problem solving. The NHI explains that while we sleep, the brain integrates information with old memories, allowing us to make unique connections between ideas. This is why we often wake up with new solutions or insights after resting on a difficult problem. In other words, sleep doesn't just help us remember, but it helps us think better. Now that we've explored sleep strengthens neural connections and helps the brain learn, let's look at what happens when we don't get enough sleep and how deprivation affects our mood and cognitive performances. Now we will talk about how the effects of sleep deprivation on mood and cognitive performances. When we lose sleep, the first part of the brain to suffer is the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and focusing. According to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institution, lack of sleep causes slower thinking, reduces the attention span, and weakens problem-solving skills. Even one night of poor sleep can make it harder to concentrate and retain information. The NIH explains that this happens because neurons in the brain become overworked without enough rest, making it more difficult for them to communicate correctly with each other. Sleep deprivation also impacts emotional regulation. The National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke report that when people are sleep deprived, communication between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which is the brain's emotional center, becomes disrupted. This weakens the connection, causing people to react more strongly when it comes to stress, anger, or frustration. In other words, the less sleep we get, the more emotionally unstable we become. This is why someone who hasn't slept well may feel irritable, anxious, or easily overwhelmed. Sleep deprivation doesn't just affect how we feel, It is also impacts our ability to make safe and logical decisions. The NIH notes that people who are tired often take more risk, and make poor decisions because their brains are not processing information correctly. Studies have even shown that driving while sleep deprived can be just as dangerous as driving under the influence of alcohol. Sleep loss slows reaction time and makes it harder to respond quickly to sudden movements, which can lead to accidental injuries. Now that we understand how sleep deprivation can harm both our thinking and emotions, let's explore the long-term impact that sleep has on the brain's overall health and how getting consistent rest can protect us from cognitive decline over time. Sleep helps maintaining the long-term brain health. While most people think of sleep as simply recharging energy, it also plays a vital role in maintaining brain health over lifespan. According to the National Institute on Aging, during sleep, the brain performs a maintenance function called housekeeping, which clears out toxins that build up while we are awake. This cleaning process happens through the glymphatic system, a network that removes waste products such as beta-amyloid, a substance linked to Alzheimer's disease. Without enough sleep, these harmful protons can accumulate, damaging brain cells and increasing the risk of cognitive disorders later on in life. Lack of sleep over the months or years can lead to more than just forgetfulness. It can increase the risk of neurodegenerative diseases. The National Institute on Aging warns that chronic sleep deprivation is associated with high likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. This information should encourage us to treat sleep as an essential part of preventive health care. Just as eating nutritious food and exercising to protect the body's maintaining health, sleep habitats protect the brain. The NIH recommends adults to get at least 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night. Establishing a consistent bedtime, avoiding caffeine late in the day, and limiting screen time before bed can improve the sleep quality and help keep the brain healthy for decades to come. Now that we have explored how sleep strengthens neural connections, how it affects our mood and decision making, and also protects against long-term brain damage, let's review the main points and reflections on why prioritizing is one of the most important choices we can make for our mental health. Today we explored how sleep affects the brain in 3 major ways. First, we learned that sleep strengthens neural connections by allowing brain to process new information and form lasting memories. Second, we discovered how sleep deprivation negatively impacts moods, focus, and decision making, leading emotional instability. Finally, we discussed how consistent sleep maintains long-term brain health by cleaning toxins and lowering the risk of cognitive decline and neurological disease. As research from the National Institute of Health shows, sleep is not just passive state, it is an active process that the brain depends on to function properly. Without enough rest, the brain cannot think clearly, manage emotions correctly, or maintain its structure over time. In a society that often glorifies busyness and late nights, it is easy to view sleep as something we can sacrifice to get more done. But in truth, sleep is the foundation of productivity, learning, and emotional well-being. The next time you consider staying up late to scroll through your phone, remember that sleep isn't a waste of time. It is your brain's most powerful form of self-care.